the most prolific Colombian drug trafficker woman, Griselda Blanco. Picture this: Medellin 2012. A quiet butcher shop on the corner of 29th Street. A woman steps out with her pregnant daughter-in-law, seemingly unaware of the motorcycle creeping closer. 2 gunshots pierce the air. The woman falls to the ground, lifeless. This wasn't just any woman. This was Griselda Blanco, La Madrina, the cocaine godmother, and one of the most feared figures in the history of the drug trade. But who was she? And how did her life, riddled with violence and power, end in such a poetic twist of fate? Today, we dive deep into the story of Griselda Blanco, a woman whose name became synonymous with power, fear, and mystery. By the end of this video, you'll understand why her life is still the stuff of legend, and perhaps even debate whether her death truly closed the book on her chilling legacy. If mysteries like this intrigue you, don't forget to subscribe and join us for more stories from the shadows. Born in Cartagena, Colombia in 1943, Griselda Blanco Restrepo didn't grow up with dreams of grandeur. Her early life was a brutal one, shaped by poverty, violence, and a move to Medellin, a city simmering with socio-political unrest. By the age of 11, Griselda had already made her mark in infamy. According to accounts, she kidnapped a wealthy neighborhood child, demanding a ransom. When the deal fell through, young Griselda made an unthinkable choice. She shot the child. Whether this story is fact or legend, it sets the tone for the ruthless woman she would become. From pickpocketing to rumored acts of extreme violence, Griselda's teenage years were a crash course in survival. By the time she ran away from home at 19, escaping the abuse of her mother's boyfriend, she was hardened, cunning, and ready to do whatever it took to rise above her circumstances. Griselda's rise to power began in the shadows of the cocaine boom. After entering the United States illegally in the 1960s, she and her second husband, Alberto Bravo, established a drug network that would revolutionize the cocaine trade. By the 1970s, Blanco wasn't just smuggling drugs, she was building an empire that spanned Colombia, New York, Miami, and California. Her operation was making an estimated $80 million a month. But this wasn't just business. For Griselda, power came with bloodshed. She was rumored to have personally ordered the murders of anyone who crossed her, and she didn't shy away from violence in her personal life. One story claims she confronted Bravo over missing money, and the argument ended with Griselda pulling the trigger, killing him in cold blood. By the 1980s, Griselda was the undisputed queen of cocaine in Miami. But her reign came at a cost. The Miami drug war erupted, and the streets became a battlefield. Griselda's tactics were ruthless, and she introduced what would later be called the motorcycle assassinations, a method that came full circle in her own death decades later. As the bodies piled up, law enforcement turned their sights on Griselda. In 1985, after years of evading authorities, she was finally arrested in her home. Charged with drug trafficking and conspiracy, she was sentenced to 15 years in prison. But even behind bars, Griselda's power remained intact. Griselda's time in prison was far from quiet. Prosecutors attempted to pin multiple murders on her, but the case fell apart amidst bizarre scandals, including her hitman's involvement in a phone sex scandal with court secretaries. Still, Griselda wasn't entirely unscathed. In 1998, she pleaded guilty to 3 murders and received a 20-year sentence. By 2004, due to her failing health, she was deported back to Colombia. After decades of power and violence, you might think Griselda's story ended there. But fate had one more twist in store. On September 3, 2012, Griselda Blanco's life ended as violently as it had been lived. As she left a butcher shop, a gunman on a motorcycle fired 2 shots, killing her instantly. The irony? This was the very method of assassination she had popularized during her reign of terror. At 69 years old, Griselda's death was the final chapter in a life that had changed the course of the global drug trade. But it also left behind unanswered questions. Did Griselda truly retire, or was she still pulling strings from the shadows? And was her assassination a random act of vengeance, or was it orchestrated by someone she had wronged? Griselda Blanco's life has inspired countless stories, from cocaine cowboys to Netflix dramas. To some, she's a symbol of ruthless ambition. To others, she's a cautionary tale about the price of power. But one thing is certain: her legacy continues to haunt the world she helped shape. How did one woman rise to such unimaginable power in a world dominated by men? Was she a criminal mastermind, or simply a product of her brutal environment? And more importantly, how much of her empire still lingers in the shadows today? Her story contains contradictions: intelligence, brutality, power, paranoia, wealth, and loneliness. Even in death, Griselda remains a figure of fascination, with whispers of hidden fortunes and unknown heirs keeping the legend alive. Could there still be secrets buried within her empire? Did her enemies truly catch up with her? Or was it a final, calculated move by the cocaine godmother herself? One thing is for sure: her legacy didn't die with her. Whether through crime documentaries, books, or popular culture, Griselda Blanco's shadow still looms large over the drug trade and the world of organized crime. So, what do you think? Was Griselda's death truly the end of her story, or just another twist in a tale filled with mysteries? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're intrigued by stories like this, hit that button and subscribe. We've only scratched the surface of the mysteries waiting to be uncovered.